What's up out there, ladies and gentlemen? I want to thank you all for stopping by the channel as always. I hope you're all fantastic out there. I have another 90s classic movie review for you guys today, and we're going to be covering one of my all-time favorites. It's a Die Hard-esque simple style action movie. It's called Judgment Night, starring Emilio Estevez, Cuba Gooding Jr., Jeremy Piven, Denis Leary, and Stephen Dorff. It's directed by Stephen Hopkins, who also directed Predator 2 and Nightmare on Elm Street 5. So let's dive into this classic 90s action movie that you may not have heard of. Don't move, don't whisper, don't even breathe. That was the tagline for this real-time action film that follows a group of friends that get together to head out for a night at a boxing match. They end up getting stuck in some heavy traffic. They decide to reroute, but Siri had not yet entered our lives in the early 90s, and they end up getting lost in a rough part of town. They accidentally witness a murder, and we all know that loose ends equal prison time, so the group ends up finding themselves hunted by a group of criminals led by Denis Leary throughout one night that none of them will ever forget. No, I won't sit here and try to tell you this was an incredibly unique storyline. It's a wrong place, wrong time scenario blended with a fish out of water trope, but for me, it all works. I admit it's a little overbloated in some places, and it does embellish a bit on the inner city darkness for the simple sake of getting the story to go where it's needed to, but the suspension of disbelief, in my opinion, is low. It's very easy to put yourself into the position of these characters to kind of imagine what decisions you would make and how you would size up against the obstacles, and I think it creates effective tension and high levels of engagement. However, I do think it's the cast that make this the effectively thrilling, intense ride that it is. Emilio Estevez at the time was a certified star, the star of the group. He was the one who has embraced his adult life with a wife and a newborn baby at home. Cuba Gooding Jr. at the time was on the rise, and he perfectly embodied this certified bachelor of the group with a blend of childlike charm and male bravado. You had Jeremy Piven, who was still very early in his career, who was just excellent as the one who had very many insecurities that masked them over with money and wealth. Wrapping up the group was Stephen Dorff, also very early in his career as Emilio's little brother with a chip on his shoulder. And you put them all together, you have a normal group of guys who go back many years with a variety of relationship dynamics between them, nothing overly theatrical or unrealistic. That's why I think this group was, for me, so easy to connect with throughout the path of this suspenseful storyline. But I mean, every action movie needs a villain, and the villain in this one was just fantastic. It's a trio of villains. First, we get Eric Schrody, aka Everlast, from the rap group House of Pain. He honestly didn't do too much in this one, but he really looked the part, and he carried plenty of intensity throughout this role. Along with him was Peter Green. He's just this guy that has a villainous face. He's made a career from playing the bad guys for decades in films, and he was great in this very early performance of his. But hands down, to me, the star of the show is Denis Leary as the leader of the drug dealers. He uses this gruff demeanor, his abrasive personality. It just all fit this role perfectly, and while Leary may not have physical prowess to cause just immediate intimidation on sight, he certainly captured it with his delivery. The character was just very heartless. He's unrelenting and just highly capable. He was vicious. He showed zero hesitation, and Leary portrayed it all through a top-notch performance that to me was still able to provide some charm to it. The dialogue, I think, to him was very nicely tailored to his personality and his timing, and the result to me was one of the great underrated villains. Like I had mentioned earlier, this is an action thriller that plays out in real time. We get to meet our group. They head out into the RV. The dynamics between them are all kind of set. We get a feel for their personality types, and from there, it doesn't take its foot off the gas until it's over. It weaves from one harrowing and stressful situation to the next that all test this group of friends in different ways that I think adds fun doses of emotional drama and stress to already strenuous situations. It may be routine in places, but I don't think it stops it from being completely compelling, and from just start to finish, I mean, relationships are tested, weaknesses and strengths are exposed, all the while Leary is just arrogantly pursuing them throughout the city, and it's just a great time. I will admit the killers are kind of tracking these guys in a very loud and overly blatant way that does feel a little bit embellished and unrealistic, but it results in some uneasiness and some suspenseful scenes that create an awesome energy and a gritty atmosphere that I find appealing. It's just a fun action movie. It's easy to just escape into the world of this story, and that's why you want a movie like this. It's not trying to win an Oscar, it's trying to entertain you. It's fast-paced, it's just an adrenaline-filled journey with tons of close calls and character development, which results in just constant curiosity as to how the story is going to end for each one of these guys. Stephen Hopkins is a name that might not be on your director radar, but I think he's a very skilled director. This is a well-crafted film, but I think still holds up very well today. The selection of physical locations just create a ton of backdrops that are very rich with their own detail and textures, making them just feel grimy and dangerous. I also think the use of practical effects was a great element to just keeping the feel of the film grounded. It keeps the film from having a studio polish, and that's kind of what you want in a story like this one that can just sweep you up. I also think the soundtrack to this one was almost as popular as the film was at the time, with a collection of songs featuring collaborations between rappers and rock bands. And it wasn't like that rap rock era. I mean, it had Pearl Jam teaming up with Cypress Hill, you had Slayer teaming up with Ice-T, Mudhoney and Sir Mix-a-Lot, Helmet and House of Pain, Living Colour and Run DMC, and a ton of others. And I honestly think the soundtrack as a whole was just a perfect collection to blend with this film, giving it endless amounts of edge and attitude. I think the songs were able to elevate the mood of many moments perfectly throughout the story, to just raise the tension effectively, to build energy, and just so much more. And overall, I think the soundtrack was just a very strong complement to the subject matter of this storyline overall. It holds up extremely well after all the years. Like I said, it's routinely fun to go back and just take the ride. It may be familiar in sections, and it does work in a handful of genre tropes, but it all blends together into an understated film, but I think accomplishes what it set out to do: take the viewer on a mental escape with waves of emotion and tension and suspense and action. So I'm going to give Judgment Night 90% on the entertainment meter. It does have some flaws, but it has so many things going in its favor that it does right. And if you haven't seen it, I suggest you looking for it and seeing if you like it. Now, for today's My Silver Screen recommendations for 3 films similar to this one, I'm going to be selecting Transit from 2012. It's a film you may not have heard of, but I definitely recommend, as well as 2011's A Lonely Place to Die and Silent House starring Elizabeth Olsen. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, drop it a thumbs up, leave a comment below. I'd love to talk movies with you guys. Share it with your friends, and without question, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can never miss a video. Here are some links to some recent reviews just in case you missed them. All my social media links and the link to our official website are down in the description below, and I'll catch you next time.